Your photo catalog is packed with images and your hard drive is full. What's a photographer to do? Let's talk about it on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions right here on Adorama TV. Today's question comes from Lauren C, and she wants to know, at what point do you typically start a new Capture One catalog? I love how I can store images on my computer without needing an external hard drive plugged in, but my computer is officially full. Should I buy a new laptop with a bigger internal drive, or should I start storing everything externally? Thanks so much, Lauren, for sending that in. It's an issue that most photographers run into eventually, whether you're using Capture One like me or other similar programs like Lightroom. Now, these programs are great for editing your RAW files, but they can also be used to organize all of your images so you can find anything you need at any time. Now, whether you're a pro or a serious hobbyist, being able to locate your work quickly and efficiently is incredibly important. Now, I know some people just dump everything onto a hard drive with no system at all, and that's fine, until it isn't. A year or two later, it's just a total mess and you can't find anything. Using a catalog-based program helps keep your work organized and searchable. Now, before we talk about when to start a new catalog, let's talk about how these programs actually work. Capture One and Lightroom both use catalogs, but they do handle storage a bit differently. In Capture One, you can choose to have your files either managed or referenced. Managed means the program physically copies your RAW files into the file system of the program itself. Everything stays together and you don't have to worry about where the files are stored because the program manages the files for you. The advantage is that your images are always with you, even if you're on a plane or working in a coffee shop with no external drive connected. Now, referenced files means that they stay outside the catalog, usually on an external drive. The catalog just remembers where those files live and then references them when needed. That's great for saving internal drive space, but it does mean that if the external drive isn't plugged in, you'll only see low-res previews. You might be able to do some basic work from those previews, but you can't export final images until the originals are connected again. Now, Capture One also has something separate called sessions. Don't be confused by that. Those are just self-contained projects that some photographers use for individual shoots, usually when tethering to the computer while they're shooting. But for long-term organization of multiple photo shoots, catalogs are where it's at. Now, as for Lightroom, there are two versions and they handle images differently. Lightroom Classic only uses referenced files. Its folders represent the actual file locations, and collections are like virtual albums you can organize however you want. The regular Lightroom, the non-classic version, is the opposite. It manages your files for you and stores them all in the cloud. So whether your images live locally or in the cloud, the concept of organizing them inside a catalog still applies. Hey, sidebar, while I've got you watching this, if you're getting something out of these videos, take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to Adorama's YouTube channel, and go ahead and hit that bell icon for notifications. It really does help us out and lets us keep producing free educational content for you every single week. And remember, if you've got a photography question of your own, head on over to askdavidbergman.com. You'll fill out the form on that site, and you never know, I just might answer your question right here on a future episode. All right, now that we've covered how catalogs store your files, let's get back to Lauren's question about starting new catalogs. Why would you ever want to start a new catalog? Well, it really depends on how you shoot and how you like to organize your work. Some people just have one giant catalog with everything they've ever done. That can work fine for a while, but as it grows, it can start to slow your computer down, especially on older machines. Now, the companies don't list any official limit, but there are reports of newer computers working fine with hundreds of thousands of images in a catalog. Older machines, they might start to have problems after 25 or 50,000 photos. What I do is I have separate catalogs for my major clients. For example, as Luke Combs' tour photographer, I have one dedicated catalog just for Luke. Inside that, I've got an album for every show that I've photographed. I've got nearly 30,000 images and almost 500 albums at this point. I put those albums into groups separated by year to keep things clean and easy to navigate. Now, each album only has my final selects from each show, not every frame that I shot. That's actually pretty important. Before I import into Capture One, I cull through my images in a program called Photo Mechanic. Then I only bring in the ones that I plan to process. That keeps my catalogs lean and fast. I did a separate video about my photo mechanic workflow, and I'll go ahead and put a link to that down in the description. Now, I also use star ratings so I can instantly find my best shots. If I want to see all my 4-star images from the entire Luke tour over 6 or 7 years, it's just one click away. And smart albums actually make this even more powerful. For example, I can search for my, let's say, vertical 4-star photos that I shot with my Canon RF 100-500mm lens. You can really look for anything you want. The advantage of having a catalog dedicated to Luke is that whenever I search for anything, it's only going to show me Luke images. Now, I also have a separate Bon Jovi catalog from my years with the band and another general catalog for all of my other freelance work. Each one is organized the same way with albums and groups for every assignment or project. That setup really makes it easy to search and keeps each catalog at a manageable size. Now, if you're just a casual photographer, you might be fine keeping everything in one catalog, at least when you're just starting out. But if your computer's slowing down because your catalog is too big, then it might be time to start a new one. Now, Lauren, you mentioned that your computer is full. That is one of the downsides of using managed files. It's incredibly convenient, but raw files, they add up fast. Even with today's big internal hard drives, it's easy to fill them up if you're shooting a lot. In your case, if you want to have access to those images, you should consider changing to referenced files. You can move your originals to an external SSD or a RAID drive and keep the catalog database itself on your laptop. That catalog file is relatively small, and your RAWs will live somewhere with a lot more space. Then, when you plug in that external drive, everything just reconnects automatically. Me personally, I try to avoid external drives if at all possible. I do a lot of editing on the road. Sometimes I'm on a plane or in an airport lounge, and I just don't want to juggle cables or risk that something disconnects mid-edit. So when I buy a new computer, I max it out and buy the biggest internal drive possible. My current production machine is a MacBook Pro. It's an old one, 2021 at this point. It's about 4 years old, but it's got an M1 Max processor and an 8 terabyte internal SSD. Yeah, 8 terabytes. It was expensive, but as they say, buy once, cry once. My work computers last me 5 to 7 years, and I never have to worry about running out of internal storage. Now, if you decide to move your files to an external drive, make sure you back up everything first. Then move the images using your catalog program, not in the Finder, so that way the program keeps track of where everything goes. If something goes wrong during the copy, you'll be very happy to have that backup. And if you're working on a desktop computer, not on a laptop, you're at home on a desktop, that's a whole nother story. You can have multiple drives connected all the time, giving you basically unlimited storage for referenced files. There's not as much worry about cables coming loose since you're not moving the computer around. In that case, having everything stored externally is perfectly fine. So Lauren, what do I recommend for you? Well, the right answer depends on your workflow. If you're traveling and want total convenience, get the biggest internal drive you can afford and keep your files managed inside the catalog. If you're not ready to get a new computer just yet, then move those originals to an external drive and keep the catalog file itself on your main machine. You don't necessarily have to start a new catalog unless your computer is slowing down or you want to organize your files differently for searching like I do with my Luke Combs and Bon Jovi files. Whichever direction you go, just make sure to keep those images safe. You gotta back everything up. Lauren, thanks so much for sending in your question. I know a lot of photographers have hit this same wall, so I hope this helps you and anyone else facing that same decision. Now, I want to hear from you all. How do you handle your catalogs? Do you keep just one big archive, or do you split them up by client or year? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to know how you've got yours set up, and let's get that discussion going. Remember, none of this is a replacement for a solid backup strategy. I've done a few videos over the years about backups, but check out this one above, somewhere up there, to see how I manage my external hard drives. Thanks so much for watching Adorama TV, and I'll see you next time right here on Ask David Bergman.